meeting agenda. Brian, did you catch any of the open?
We didn't catch.
All right, so let's go ahead and just gavel in and
Call it to order.
Okay, let's start from the beginning.
Where are you?
I call this meeting of the Kennedale Independent School District to order. Let the meeting show that a quorum of board members is present, that this meeting has been duly called, and that the notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Governance Code, Chapter 551. We'll now move to Section 2 of our agenda, which is the roll call. Ms. Debbie Villagomez.
Here.
Ms. Maria Cruz Perez.
Here.
Mr. Sean Glovier.
Here.
Ms. Maria Douglas.
Here.
Ms. Felicia Moody.
Here.
And Mr. Esteban Cerda.
Here.
And Darrell Owens is here. That means we have a full board that is here tonight. Thank you very much. Next on our agenda will be public comments on any agenda items. And we will ask Mr. Cerda to go and take a look, see if we have anybody signed up for any public comments on tonight's agenda items. Okay, so there are no people signed up for comments on agenda items. And are there any, and no one is signed up for any non-agenda items either? All right, so that will take us through our section 3 for public comments, and we'll now move to section 4. Okay, I think we might want to move that to section 4. We got it. Okay, we're going to go to section 5. Yeah, section 4, we got that. Am I? Okay, let's go ahead and take it back up on this and take a look at it. Okay. Love that. Technology is wonderful, isn't it? Okay, and we'll now go to the section 5, which is the consent agenda. All items listed under this subheading will be adopted with one motion unless they are removed for the consent by a trustee. Okay?
Make a motion to approve all items under the consent agenda as presented.
That is by Mrs. Douglas.
Second.
And second by Mr. Glovier, that the consent agenda be accepted as presented. All in favor, let it be known by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that motion carries unanimously. We'll now go to section 6, which is for our information only section, and we'll give you Mr. G.
And we'll turn this over to our wonderful band directors. Down to playing band trips and do licensing.
Good evening. I'm Kelly Wilson, the Director of Bands here at Kendall High School. I'm presenting to you today a proposal to take the Kendall High School Wildcat Band to Orlando, Florida during the second spring break in April, from April 6th to April 11th. So the entire purpose of this trip is to take them to the Disney Imagination Campus recording sessions at Epcot Studios. That at that recording session, they'll be able to work with a professional conductor, and they'll be able to sight read Disney music approved by Disney already, so no copyright issues there. And from there, they will superimpose a movie over the soundtrack that the band makes. That'll be on Monday, April 8th. We will leave Kennedale High School on April 6th. About 1 p.m. we'll arrive. We are going to take charters to Orlando, Florida. We will arrive on April 7th. Around in the morning time, we'll go to the group hub for the kids to clean up a little bit. They will spend that day at Hollywood Studios. The next day is the recording session on April 8th at Epcot Studios. They'll spend the rest of the day when they're not recording at Epcot. On April 9th, they'll be going to Universal Studios, and they'll get to spend the day in the park, and they're going to end their trip at the Magic Kingdom with the fireworks show at the very end of the night, and then we will head home at 11 p.m. on that night and get back at April 11th. So the reason I went with charter buses instead of planes, in the past the band has flown to Orlando, but with the rising cost of transportation, it was an additional $600 per student, and we have multiple families in our band that has more than one student. And so by the time they kind of add that up, it's an additional trip cost. So we are going to go ahead and take the time to get there on those charter buses to kind of make it a little bit more attainable for our students. So one thing I did want to point out is this is a trip that we started planning back in the spring semester of last year. So on the the letter to the board and the superintendent, you may notice it ended with Mr. Oaktie's name. That's because he got all of this started, and I kind of had to finish up and put all the details in this. So I did want to point that out. If you do have any more questions about it, I do have 3 trip binders next to me if you would like to look through a little bit more of it. That kind of includes some of the commitment forms that we give to our students, medical release forms, trip rules, trip guidelines, and the whole 9 yards.
This is a trip you take every other year, right?
The band has traditionally gone on an out-of-state trip every 2 years. The Disney trip has been about every 4. So the last Disney trip was going to be in 2020, but as we know, a worldwide pandemic happened. So this would actually get us back on track in that 4-year rotation of going to Disney World.
My question only is, I think I've asked this before, can we as a district earmark, because I see the total cost is about $1,222 per student, right?
Yes, ma'am, that is correct.
Can we earmark, funds to sponsor 2 kids that are maybe on reduced meal lunches or something and have that available? Or does that mean that students just can't go if they're reduced, they can't afford it?
It would be a gift for public funds, and we can't do that.
So there's no provisions that can be made for like students that can't afford to go on the trip, right? That are in band?
Have some kind of fundraising.
Yes, we are upping the fundraisers this year, but also with the UIL State Marching Band contest going to every single year now, it's just, we're having to balance how much goes to that State Marching Band contest and how much we can allocate to the kids. But we're trying to push any money that doesn't have to go to that State Marching Band contest onto that Disney trip to bring the overall cost down at the end of the day.
Any additional questions for, okay, all right. Well, thank you, Ms. Wilson.
All right, thank you.
And that is section 6A. We now go to section 6B, counseling service program update.
Good evening, Stephanie Devlin, Director of Counseling Services, and tonight we're going to review the Counseling Services Department for the 23-24 and looking at moving into the 22-23 school year and then looking and moving to the 23-24 school year. So Counseling Services plays an integral and pervasive role in Texas public schools. They intersect with all aspects of our education system. Each program, whether academic, extracurricular, special education, is positively influenced and supported by a school counselor. Tonight, we're going to look at our Texas model of school counseling that provides our framework in which we function and how we work, and also look at specific district initiatives and programs in which we provide in each of those areas. So the Texas Model for Comprehensive School Counseling Program is an integral part of our education system. It is how we function and how we work. It's a framework in which we follow. So as delineated by the Texas Education Code, the role of a school counselor is expansive and collaborative. Counselors are entrusted with the responsibility of working hand in hand with family, teachers, staff, and parents, and our community. Together, we plan, implement, and continuously evaluate the developmental guidance and counseling program that caters to the evolving needs of our students. So in this model, our student competency areas, developmental stages, service delivery components, and domains. So the delivery components, how counselors deliver all of this curriculum and student competency areas to our students, is through 4 delivery methods: guidance curriculum, which is our guidance classroom lessons or larger scale group lessons; responsive services, which is our in the moment responses, small group and individual services provided to our students. Individual planning is meeting with our students one-on-one to review graduation plans or career and guidance plans; and then system supports, how we are supporting the system campus and district-wide and working with staff, parents, and students. So looking at how these 4 domains work within the broader educational framework is really important in making sure that we're balancing each of the 4 delivery components throughout the system. So guidance curriculum can look at small groups and individual planning and how they're all interwoven together. They're not individual isolated delivery components. They work together to provide a comprehensive counseling program. This is the Texas model for recommended percentages and how counselors are spending their time in each of these areas, broken down by elementary, middle school, and high school. So as you'll see, there's a shift in guidance particularly moving more so, it's heavier at the elementary levels, and as we get up into high school and secondary, individual planning becomes a little bit more of where the time is spent for our counselors. In that, our SEL curriculum must cover these 4 areas in all development appropriate stages. So post-secondary education career readiness, personal health and safety, interpersonal effectiveness, and intrapersonal effectiveness. And how we in Kennedale provide some of those programs and initiatives are listed under each of those delivery domains. So second step is our SEL curriculum. We provide that pre-K through 8th grade. We have an SEL toolkit for our teachers to supplement second step. Our Paw Pride locally developed character traits to just add in an extra layer of recognizing our students and also meeting the positive character trait requirements set by Texas Education Code. And then we have some outside supports as well to provide some of our compliance in presentations with Play It Safe. We also have Parent U, which is a locally developed guidance curriculum that our counselors put on with our Help of our CT program. And then post-secondary guidance, which is through our guidance lessons, classroom lessons, college career day, and also Zello, which I'll talk about in just a minute. Responsive services, we offer small group, individual. We have social workers, communities and schools, case managers at our junior high and high school, and then crisis intervention. And then system support, sitting in on 504, leading 504 initiatives and meetings, at-risk monitoring, providing professional development for our staff and families, community outreach, consulting, coordinating resources, and then individual planning, working on personal graduation plans, post-secondary planning, academic advising, and goal setting. How we provide support is integral in helping our counselors be successful in their program. And one of those pieces is how we have staffed really talented and educated individuals in these areas. And so we have a student support coordinator, we have lead counselors at our secondary campuses, an intervention counselor that will provide support in district-wide, a social worker in communities and schools case managers, and a CCMR coordinator. Here is our current counseling ratios for each of our campuses. The green is the addition of our early childhood center for next year, so that will lessen the ratio for our Delaney and Patterson counselors, and that is highlighted in the green, and the black is last year, so approximate numbers are what we're looking at for next year. At junior high and high school, we do have 2 counselors, campus counselors for those campuses, so that ratio is 1 to 346 and 1 to 546. In addition, we have a social worker that will be providing services for our pre-K through 5th grade, and then we have 1 case manager for communities and schools at junior high and high school, and then an intervention counselor that will be providing support district-wide. As far as our resources and what we provide our programs, curriculum, again, is second step. Play It Safe, our Youth Equipped to Succeed. It provides the mandated requirements for our human sexuality teaks, character ed. We do that through second step and Paw Pride. This year we'll also be offering services through T-Chat in addition to our district intervention counselor. That will be at every campus, and that was an MOU that went a few months ago, where we will have online counseling services provided available to our families and students in the school or outside of the school that will be at no charge to our families. Post-secondary planning, we have Zello, which is a online software program that this year we rolled out kindergarten through 8th grade, and next year it'll be district-wide. So we'll have it all the way up through high school. And then for our Parent U, for our family, and also raising highly capable kids, we plan to implement and to provide that next year as well. Just a little snapshot in how we work, I think, is helpful. How we look and work on a continuous improvement plan. So we get counselor referrals. That's a way for students to refer themselves, parents, staff. We look at that data. Counselors turn in monthly program forms and how they are going to provide services in each of those domain areas. They set goals. They look at that each month and see what they were able to accomplish, not accomplish, and where they might need to pivot for the next month. And then campus data reports. We take our counseling referral forms and as well as additional data from our PEAMS system and provide and review that every 9 weeks to campus and district leadership. The data definitely tells a story, and it's important for us to constantly be looking at it and see how our programs are effective and where we might need to make some changes. This is our lovely, beautiful dashboard with counseling services. It's not public, but it is something that we're working towards providing. Counseling referrals are broken down currently by number of referrals, the timing of referrals, and the reason for referral. So we look at that, and in addition, break it down into elementary and secondary and see kind of what the climate is, what's happening that 9 weeks, where we need to provide maybe extra services, and so forth. In addition, bullying is something we're always looking at, making sure we're providing support for our students. Often, the perception of the amount of bullying that's happening on campus doesn't necessarily align with the substantiated reports. This year, we had 39 total bullying reports submitted. 10 of those were substantiated claims. So we look at that. Of course, we would love to have 0 up there. And continuously declining that number and providing support and continuing the narrative, making sure parents, students, and staff know how to report, what to do to when they see something happen, and being aware and very vigilant in that. Our priorities for this upcoming school year is our really implementing with fidelity our college and career planning tool for K through 12, and then our SEL curriculum alignment. So this year we will be able to offer lessons through a second step to our teachers so that they can support and expound upon our guidance lessons that our counselors are providing once a month, and then offering that same support at the high school level. In addition, continuously looking at compliance with legislative requirements related to what we need to meet and making sure we're exceeding that and meeting those. That's all the information I have. Thank you so much. Have any questions?
Any questions, guys? No questions?
Thank you.
I'd just like to say, 5 years ago, where were we?
Very different landscape than what we're doing now.
You've done a phenomenal job.
Thank you. Thank you for your support, really.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Good job. We'll now move to section 6C on the agenda, which is the Kendall High School Professional Development Plan for Compliance Training.
Good evening, Board of Trustees. Tonight, I will be presenting the 23-24 KISD Professional Development Plan for Compliance Trainings. As required by DMA Local, I will provide an overview of the state requirements for statutory trainings and highlight how the KISD Professional Development Plan aligns with these guidelines. At the end of this presentation, I will answer any questions that you may have about the KISD plan. Then I'm going to seek consideration of your approval of the KISD plan at the August meeting. So I'm going to start by providing a bit of contextual information or some background information about the changes at the state level. During the 87th legislative session in 2021, the State Board for Educator Certification, also known as SBEC, was charged with creating a clearinghouse of information regarding the professional development requirements for educators. So out of that session came SB 1267, which covers educational requirements, including best practices, frequency recommendations for local boards. Further, it requires the Board of Trustees to review the clearinghouse and adopt a professional development policy that's guided by the SBEC clearinghouse training recommendations, which you did when the board approved the updates to DMA Local last summer. So this is a screenshot of the first page of the clearinghouse. It's linked in your board book so you can see the entire document there. As I said, the clearinghouse is intended to streamline continuing education requirements for school employees. It gives districts the authority to select the type and frequency of trainings that best suit its staff needs. It's also meant to help guide local school districts in making decisions around what training is required, how often we should require that training, and which personnel are required to complete the training. So this is the first page, it's a screenshot of the first page of the KISD Professional Development Plan for Compliance Training. And here I want to highlight the specific requirements listed in the SBEC clearinghouse and talk through how we've used it to inform our decisions as we've developed the KISD Professional Development Plan. So if you look, you have these two documents here. So this is the clearinghouse. This was provided by the state. The requirements used to be pages and pages long until this new bill came out. So here you can see suicide prevention. Then you can go here and it says suicide prevention. So you can see the one-to-one matching there. We have included other statutory requirements. So if you look here, it says training requirements for SB 1267. That's in the first part. And then below that is the training requirements for DMA legal. So we have that. Then below that, we have requirements related to student discipline, special education, students with disabilities, student welfare, safety and security, employee welfare, emergency operations, facilities management, etc. Our team has put a great deal of time in reviewing the policy requirements and working to streamline, consolidate, and where appropriate, eliminate some of the required trainings for our teachers in Kennedale to create a space for teachers to have more time to participate in more training aligned with their particular grade level and subject area while still meeting the requirements as listed in board policy. The KISD plan, as you'll see on the document, it's been organized in a way that provides details around the statutory provisions and laws connected to the different trainings, so you can see the correlation. So the timeline looks something like this. So we had the 87th legislative session in 2021. They put out the list late last summer. So this summer we've worked hard to create our plan. We put the online compliance bundle. It was open to all staff in June. I'm bringing you the full plan that includes all of the different pieces that go beyond the online compliance bundle, which, if you're familiar with Kennedale, districts everywhere have been doing some form of an online compliance bundle for teachers to do in the summer before going into next year for many years. So we continue with that practice, but we spent time this year really reviewing what is required, reviewing do we have to require it annually? Could we do it every 3 years? So we came up with a new hire online compliance bundle. So it hits every single thing that we have to provide the training, because some of the things say every year, some of the trainings say every 3 years, some of them say that you just have to offer it. But there are certain ones like sexual harassment, for example, that we only are required to offer at one time, but we've opted to offer it more often than that. So then whenever the teachers return, we have a very robust bundle for the new hires. When the teachers return, it's more streamlined, and you can tell that we've picked out several of the trainings that are required for the new hire. And when the option was available, there's a full course for the new hire, and there's a refresher course for the returning teachers, which I think will be helpful for them. So next month, I'm going to add the professional development plan for compliance trainings in the board agenda for you to approve, and then we'll start the process over again next summer. And I want to be clear, this is our professional development plan for compliance trainings. This is not all the professional development that we offer in Kennedale ever. So for example, you can actually see evidence of our professional development, some of it that we did with new hires on engagement strategies with students and Lead Forward. So there are other trainings that are offered. This is evidence that we are aligned with the statutory provisions. What questions do you have?
Dr. V, with the current compliance bundle that we're using, did we see an increase or possibly a decrease in the amount of hours that the teachers?
As compared to what?
Previous years.
There's a significant decrease this year. So the online compliance bundle for returning teachers, we put 6 hours, but it takes less time than that. Whereas before it was, I can't remember the exact number, but closer to 18. So we've cut it down quite a bit. Because we want them to participate in professional learning, right? That's part of being a reflective practitioner, where we're learning and growing and trying to develop our craft. But you don't always get that from Stop the Bleed.
So Dr. Vu, on the form that you just showed us, define other. What is,
Tell me what you're looking at specifically. So
it
is
says
it,
KISD Professional Development Plan for Compliance Trainings. And then it's the course title, topic, code policy, and the very far right is other.
so we have our Vector Safe Schools, that's our online compliance bundle. We have some that are offered during our new hire bundle, some that are offered for our returning staff during Welcome Back. Other is that it's offered another time during the year that's not online, and it's not during new hires, not during return, but not for returning staff. So it varies, it depends on the specific training. So one off the top of my head I can think of is CPI training that's required for all administrators. So that we don't necessarily offer it as part of our Welcome Back package, but it is offered a couple of times a year so that the administrators can stay current.
Thank you.
Any additional questions about it? Yes.
In that same section, for the sexual harassment and the diversity lines, I just want to make sure I'm understanding.
What page are you on?
3 of 4.
Okay. Okay.
And it says sexual harassment, same thing with diversity awareness, staff to staff. Is that staff teaching staff? What is staff to staff?
We often work with people who have different experiences and cultures than ourselves, and it's important that we're able to collaborate and work meaningfully with people who are different than us.
So if I was taking that course, it shows that it's online, it's under the Vector Safe Schools, but it also shows, like for sexual harassment, the full course for new hires and then refreshers. So
Are you looking at sexual, the
I'm looking at
one
the
right
sexual-
before the green line, so sexual
Yeah.
harassment policy? So it's part of our online bundle, and it's offered for new hires, but everybody's required to do it every 3 years. So if you go over to the left of the first X,
Okay.
you can see where it will say either annually or every 3 years. So it's one of the ways that we are able to consolidate the bundle, but we still are going to ensure that our staff take that course at least once every 3 years. So after this year, so last year we started with our new hire bundle, which was everything. Every single thing that's required, that's in board policy, that's in statute, every single thing's required. This year we've moved to, we have our new hire, which is the same as it was last year, and then we have level 1. So next year we'll have level 1 and level 2. So what you'll see is when it says every 3 years, each of these different groups, depending on when they came into Kennedale, are going to take these different courses. So not every staff member is going to complete the same courses every year, but every staff member is going to be compliant with this particular plan. It took a lot of work to get here. I know that it looks, there's just a lot of words and X's, but these people spent a lot of time. We had board policy printed up and checklists and all kinds of things. We just wanted to make sure that we were doing what's required of us legally, but also being sensitive to the fact that teachers have other things that they could be spending their time doing that would serve our students.
And our auxiliary staff not having to do the trainings that don't apply to them.
So it's obvious that there's a lot of work has gone into this, and it's a flow chart that looks like I can follow. That's a good thing. Everybody can follow too. So just a comment on the appreciativeness of me for the amount of work that went into putting it together.
Well, thank you.
Very well organized.
Any additional questions for Dr. Vu?
No, I'm just gonna comment too that I think the staff will appreciate it, because I've heard that in the past too about why are we doing this training when it doesn't even apply to us.
There's so much, and I can pass out the chart, but
No,
it's a lot to
It's a
digest.
compliment thing,
Right.
so it's good that it's good.
Yeah, well, thank you.
No, we're trying to reduce what they're doing, but the state, every year they upped all the requirements and different trainings, and we can sit in training all day long, or we can try to do online versions where we're not monopolizing so much time out on campus just trying to do training. It's been a lot, so they've done a great job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Vu. That takes care of section 6. We're now going to move to section 7, which are business items that are requiring action. So we'll start with section 7A, which is discuss and consider approval of the 2023-2024 Student Code of Conduct.
My name is on the agenda, so I am going to introduce our real presenter, which is Laura Adams. She is our lead behavior interventionist, and this is a task that she's taken on. So we take the information that we receive from our attorneys. We got it a little bit late this year because of the legislative session, and our attorneys tell us exactly what we should include in their piece. You know, how many campuses do you have, and you fill it in. So Laura Adams has done a tremendous job. She's provided the code of conduct, but she's also provided a chart that shows you specific changes that have been made. So we thought that would be helpful for you.
In fact, we got it last week, is that right? Yeah.
She's fast.
That was helpful, thank you.
I hustled a little, and there's one little mistake on here. You know, I'm assuming you all have this, okay? I figured, should have numbered the pages, but so I'll just go page by page, and the insignificant stuff I'll just cross over quickly. I also noted here that I did not put a reference page number to the code of conduct on this actual document. So if you would like to jot it down, I'm going to tell you each one. If you want to go back and look at it and make sure it's all aligned right, I will give you that reference for you to look at if you'd like. The first one on the first page, that discipline management techniques, basically just instead of saying look at board policy, we're saying this is the job description of our security personnel. And so they just kind of expanded that a little bit. The other one, under discipline management techniques, on page 8 of the code of conduct, they have added, or we were able to add, revocation of an interdistrict transfer as permitted by state law or local DOI plan. So we are doing more of that, you know, out of district transfer in, but if there's severe behavior and disciplinary issues, we do have that option. Under general types of prohibited conduct, they just added a line about racial comments. The committing criminal mischief with damage in an amount less than $2,500 on page 12. That used to be like a mandatory DAEP if it was greater than 700, and we'll hit that again in a minute, but they've put it up here as a general on the whole list of all the prohibited conduct. In-school suspensions are on page 16, and that just added that the campus administrator can place some restrictions on extracurricular things and stuff like that. Next page is what they've done is they talked a lot about alcohol and marijuana and serious offenses while under the influence of alcohol, and all of these things kind of blended together in one paragraph. They neatened it up a little bit. We've got sells, gives, delivers, possesses, etc. for marijuana, for alcohol, and also for, as we all know, as of September 1st, possessing, using, selling, giving, or delivering another person an e-cigarette. Because this is kind of a big hot topic out there, I went ahead and looked at the definitions to see if anything had changed about that definition. Now, those definitions are back on page 29 with the whole, like a glossary. But I pulled it up here just to take a look. And the print that's in green, I'm just showing that they moved the location. It's the same print or the same text. And they cleaned up, there was a consumable liquid solution, blah, blah, blah. They've done number 1, number 2, and added accessories and those kinds of things. They just really clarified it a lot better in the definitions page. The next page is a lot of new stuff. And looking at the first one under discretionary DAEP placement, which is on page 18 of the Code of Conduct, on the left-hand side, I neglected to put what it used to say, and it was very short. It said a student may be placed in DAEP if the student is a registered sex offender who is not under any form of court supervision. Well, it's moved over, and that used to be, that's all it used to be. Now they've expanded that, talked about how if they're a registered sex offender who's not under court supervision, then they will be placed in regular classes if they're not a threat to the safety of others. However, in the section, which we will get to about special rules regarding sex offenders, that will be defined, and we'll get to that. So that's not the end-all on registered sex offenders not under court. Now, if they're on probation or under any kind of court supervision whatsoever, then that is automatically DAP. For DAE placement, some procedures have been added. The first one must inform the parent of an evaluation procedure, so letting them know how to request a full individualized and initial evaluation of the student. That has been added to the code of conduct, and so we have to inform every parent now of that. It's on page 19 of the new code of conduct. On pages 19 and 20, probably due to the new rule about vaping, we have a very extended explanation of when DAEP is at capacity. So if at the time a DAE placement decision is made for the student who engaged in that conduct, then they can be placed in in-school suspension. However, if, because you want to be able to, and that's because if you have somebody who does violent, you've got to clear a space in DAP because they must be there. So somebody who has a vape violation can just go to ISS. However, if a spot clears up in DAEP, they are to go back to DAEP from ISS. And that's page 19 and 20 of the, and I'm not reading all of it. You can take a look at that, but it is an extensive couple of paragraphs there that lays all that out. On the next page, all they did on this length of DAE placement is to remove the language about remote from back that was put in there during COVID, I suppose. So that was on page 20 of the code of conduct. There has been, speaking of transfers of registered sex offenders under court supervision, and also not under court supervision, the red is an added paragraph, and it's exactly the same for not court supervised or court supervised. And basically it's saying that you do need to have the committee, that's always been in place, and the district will consider recommendations from that review committee before making decisions about the transfer. Next page. Transition plan, nothing changed. They just cleaned up the language and reorganized it a little bit. And that's on page 22 of the code of conduct. All of it stands. Reasons for mandatory expulsion. This, again, they cleaned up the paragraph about marijuana, alcohol, all of that, and they've taken off commits a serious act or offense while under the influence of alcohol. So that is no longer a mandatory expulsion. I believe it's mandatory DAP, but you'd have to check that. But it used to be mandatory expulsion, and that they've taken that off. However, it can be mandatory if that behavior is punishable as a felony. So that still doesn't eliminate that. I accidentally lined that out, and it is not. It is back. It's on the new one as well. That still stands. Discretionary expulsion. They take the muddy kind of paragraph about the different substances and they put them in bullet points. So you've got one for marijuana, one for alcohol, and the other is for just any substance or dangerous drug. And that is on page 24. We have the 300 feet rule. Again, they crossed off marijuana, alcoholic beverage definitions, and they just said under the influence of a controlled substance or a dangerous drug, because it doesn't matter what kind. And that's page 25. On page 27, at the top of that one, I didn't put the section. I realized that. I just started writing the paragraph. So the section is on the length of expulsion. And again, the only thing they've done there is they've taken out school closure, virtual instruction as part of the time served. That's it in a nutshell. And if you have any questions.
I believe you had a question.
I did. It's not necessarily on the comparison, so maybe I can just get with you after. It was more on the code of conduct, because I was reading obviously the entire code of conduct, and there were a couple, I listed like, I think 4 items that if I was a parent I'm not sure I understand exactly what it was meaning. Like one of them on page 11, and you don't, it says, you know, student, under student count, less than a usable amount of stem, seeds, or other pieces of marijuana got you in trouble. But I wasn't sure, like, what is less than a usable amount, what happens with more than a usable amount, so I just wanted some clarification on a couple things in the
That
code of
came
conduct.
straight from Walsh Gallegos, so I'm not in a position to comment on it.
We have to be determined by the police officer that would probably be investigating, so.
Okay, so
That
maybe
makes
that's what
sense.
that
By law,
would be.
definition by their law. so-
Be- Whether it's misdemeanor possession or felony
Okay.
possession.
That makes sense.
Okay, that would be for legal, but I wanna know, let's just say if I was a parent and my kid had, what's gonna happen? Was that an automatic DAEP, expulsion, in-school suspension? I was
It's-
trying to
I'm-
look at the categories, so like I said, I could just go over it with you, because as far
I
as what
really-
you're doing here,
I'm
completely
thinking
clear.
it would because sells, gives, delivers, possesses, uses, or under the influence of marijuana, see definitions, and the definitions may go into that. I did not look at that.
Okay.
Or tetrahydrocannabinol, see definitions.
Okay.
So I suppose if you've got seed or stem or whatever, that's going to fall under mandatory, I would think.
Okay.
I mean, when I do this, I do, some of the stuff I can fill in. They
Right.
give us options. And I go straight to the board and look at both legal and local policy to make sure that we're following what's in place.
Correct, correct. There was another one, like it mentioned a knife with a blade 5.5 inches or less, but then it didn't necessarily say what would happen if the knife or blade was 5.5 inches or more.
It's, I believe, mandatory DAP.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, all right.
It's listed in the mandatory DAP section. It lists
The
all
other
the
section.
violations.
Okay.
I only brought up the ones that have maybe changed.
Okay, gotcha, okay. And then I just had one other one I can talk with you
Okay.
later about.
Anything else?
Thank you.
Any other questions for? No.
Remember, this all comes from legal, that's why you have to adopt it, these are all changes from legislature. Very good job, in a very short period of time, so.
Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you.
Okay, so,
Oh, that's next.
okay, so,
I'd like to move that we approve the 2023-2024 Student Code of Conduct as presented.
presented by
Second.
Mr. Cloutier and seconded by Mr. Serta. All in favor, let it be known by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that passes unanimously. Thank you very much for the presentation and for the board taking care of that. We now move to section 7B, discuss and consider approval of the 2023-2024 KISD Region 11 contract.
As you know, our service center provides lots of services for us. One of the big ones is we get our DMAC. We get a lot of our business services through them. So all of that is broken out in pieces, but cumulatively, they're over 50,000, so it has to come to the board for approval. So Mr. Adams is here to.
Answer any questions. Mr. G's already covered all
Well-
the topics.
How much is it, I guess?
171.
81.
81,000.
131.
I've looked at lots of numbers today.
So total 181,000?
Yes, sir.
And that's for,
Curriculum, technology, business services.
And it's all lined up.
Yeah.
We do have a whole sheet.
okay. All right, so that being said, are there any additional questions for Ms. Adams that we might like to probe along, get them to deep dive into numbers?
I worked with CSS in compiling what we need, so. That's all we
Technology
need.
review that, right, make sure that we're utilizing the services.
All right, if that's the case, then I'll entertain a motion to accept.
I'll make a motion to approve the contract.
With KISD Region 11 for 2023-2024 school year as presented.
Motion by Ms. Douglas,
Second.
second by Mr. Glover. I thought I could speak on this. All in favor, let it be known by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that motion carries unanimously as well. Okay, thank you very much. We now move to section 7C. Discuss and consider approval of the agreement for the purchase of attendance credit, option 3 agreement to delegate contractual authority to the superintendent.
I'll let you go first this time. So.
2 weeks ago, we received a letter that we're going to have to pay recapture, which means we're a wealthy district. We have too much money per average, or weighted average daily attendance. 476,000, we're just a little over that. Right now, they're projecting we'll owe $170,000 in recapture, because our values keep increasing rapidly and our student body's not, so that's what's causing the recapture. And we have to, this is the first step in the process, authorizing Mr. G to negotiate the contract with TDA.
We're recommending, there are 5 options and 5 ways to pay it back to the state. You can buy attendance credits, which is what we're
We're
just
buying it
selling
from
out
the
basically.
state.
Yeah. But
Wait,
you can-
what did you, wait, I didn't hear.
We can buy attendance credits from the state.
Okay.
That's what we're paying $170,000.
Okay.
Or you can bring in other districts' students, which you really have no control over those students or anything, so we don't want to do that. You can also sell off property, to you have more property than you need in their eyes, which is not an option. So basically, the options that we recommend is option number 3, which is basically selling them back to the state.
Can you go over what all the 5 are though?
Buying them back.
Can you go over what all the 5 options were? Pay it back, other district students, sell off property.
Well, we don't sell off property, we transfer property.
Well,
Houston did that 4 years ago.
basically, the gist is you give some of your property to another
Right.
district.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
Or you can buy attendance credits from another district if you want to.
That would be the buy it back option?
No, that's the second buyback.
Oh, okay.
So is that 5?
And it's called what, buy back what? Another?
Well, you're buying attendance credits from another district.
I misspoke, I said sell, we're not selling, they're not buying, we're buying, and we're having to pay them the money back.
So basically, there's another district that's designated that is in need of the funds, and you would have to transfer your money to that district.
We're buying attendance credits.
For that
Very
district.
first district I was with, we bought attendance credits from Austin. Or Austin gave us money for that.
Okay, so that's 4.
Transfer property.
Or sell, do you have one about selling property?
Yep, I got pay it back, other district, students, transfer property, buy back attendance to another district. Sorry, I just want to understand the 5 options so that I can better understand which one we're picking.
Well, none of them are good except for number 3.
Right? I don't think any of them are probably good, but.
No.
I mean, when you're
Yeah.
getting money back.
Yeah, it's the least
We
of-
are, I mean, it's nowhere near the 17 million. I think.
Tax-based consolidation with another district.
Yes.
What is it?
Tax-based consolidation with another district would be option 5.
2 districts together, using the average.
I'm sorry, Mr. Owens, would you say that again, what you just explained to Dr. Douglas?
Oh, I would just, I was giving what I thought that meant.
Well, I don't have an understanding of any of it, so what you just said would benefit me.
If the 2 districts going together, it's
Okay.
using the average of what the 2 are
Okay.
as your number, if you might, basically.
Okay. I just couldn't hear, I just wanted to know.
And while Mrs. Hughes looking for that, how often are these numbers, these caps that they give us recalculated?
476,000's been there for a long time. There is some discussion about adjusting it for inflation. But usually, a lot of the things that the state does, they set a value, it stays there until eventually everybody hollers. I think there's 315 districts now that are in recapture. I think that was part of that article I read.
So, first one is consolidation with another district as provided by subchapter B2 2 is the attachment of territorial provided by subchapter D. 3 is purchase of average daily attendance credit as provided by subchapter D. 4 is education of non-residential students as provided by subchapter E. And 5 is tax-based consolidation with another district as provided by subchapter F.
And we are picking which one?
Number 3.
And what we're doing is basically, we're just giving the authority to superintendent to
To
negotiate.
negotiate. That's the
Negotiate
first
for a
step in the
lesser
process.
amount?
There will be
They
no
won't.
less.
There's no negotiating
No
now,
negotiation.
it's just
There's
how we
no
do it.
negotiation in this, so.
And we'll just reduce.
Decide what they say.
What the state was gonna pay us, we'll just reduce whatever we have to pay back.
Okay. Any additional questions about what the options are or what our situation is?
We just have to file it with the state, so you have to
Right.
approve it, so we can file it with the state, so if they know what our intent is.
All right. So, Ms. D. Gomez, you like?
I'll do it second.
I'm sorry.
I put her in a spot.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion for someone to,
For the 23-24 school year, we delegate contractual authority to obligate the school district under Texas Education Code, Section 11-1.11, Chapter 4, to the superintendent solely for the purpose of obligating the district under TEC Section 48.257 and TEC Chapter 48, Subchapters A and D, and the rules adopted by the Commissioner of Education as authorized under TEC 49.006. This included approval of the agreement for the purchase of attendance credit or the agreement for the purchase of attendance credit, netting Chapter 48 funding.
that is motion by
Second.
Ms. Cruz Perez, that's awesome, and seconded by Ms. Dugan. All in favor of the, document, let it be known by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, we'll then go to section 7B, discuss and consider approval of contractor for KHS ball field concession stands and restroom complex.
All right, we'll have Robert explain the
Hi, Robert.
process.
Good evening, board members. This has been a process to get to when we're finally ready to build this thing. We advertised statewide for this. We actually got 6 very competitive proposals from contractors, 5 from the Metroplex, 1 from the Austin area, which we have done some work with. The ranking sheets and the bid tab, I believe, are in your board packet. The proposals were reviewed by staff and our team, as well as the architecture team. We looked at a variety of criteria other than just the price, but it's hard to turn away from the price that was proposed. It was a little scary. It was a big delta between the low proposer and the next proposer. So we spent some time scrubbing the price. We identified a couple of things that were key. One is the supply houses in the Metroplex were offering mechanical, electrical, and plumbing equipment at almost twice what the supply houses in the Austin area were providing, which is a little unusual. In addition to that, the low proposer to specifications, and I think there was one other, they self-perform a lot of their own work, and so there's not a lot of subcontractors involved, and I think that's where the value came from. So we spent a lot of time with them going through the proposal, gave them time to go back and see if they had missed something, concrete, earthwork, drainage, something like that, and they felt very strongly about the pricing. They got solid numbers from their suppliers and their subs, and so we're prepared to make a recommendation tonight for you guys to consider approving our final ranking and authorizing the superintendent to finalize and execute a contract with GF Harper Associates.
I got one question about this. Are we still on track for that to be ready?
We are. Their proposal is 150 days, so that puts us finishing right around Christmas break. Yes, sir.
Is that the group out of Austin?
Yes, ma'am.
I just want to say it louder, so we should be finished by Christmas break.
Don't jinx it, but that's
Well,
the idea.
just because it's
Yeah.
been thrown around.
As soon as you say that, we're actually going to start getting rain again. But no, that is, it's a pretty simple structure. There is some grade changes that have to be modified, some drainage that has to be modified, but they're confident they can get it done.
So given that we get no crazy rains or no crazy weather, we should be good
Correct.
to go.
Yes, ma'am.
No act of God, we should be good to go.
Right. And the scope does include demolition of the existing facilities and cleaning that area up as well.
Sounds good.
All right, any additional questions, for Robert?
Thank you.
And I will entertain a motion.
I move to approve TF Harper's and Associates for the general contractor for construction of the new baseball and softball concessions and restroom facility at Kennedale High School and authorize the superintendent to finalize and execute a contract for construction.
Second.
That was motion by Mr. Glovier and second by Ms. Cruz Perez.
Okay.
All in favor, let it be known by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
We now go to section 7E, which is discuss and consider all matters incident and related to the insurance and sale of Kennedale Independent School District Unlimited Tax School Building Bond Series 2023, including an adoption of an order authorizing the issuance of such bonds.
I'm not sure if you remember Jeff Robert from the presentations back during the bond proposals when he came and spoke at the public meetings. He's our financial advisor, so with Hilltop Securities, so I'll turn it over to Jeff.
Thank you, Mr. G. President Owens, Trustee Jeff Robert with Hilltop Securities. Before I even get into this information, I'm going to, congratulate you on passing the bond election. And B, tell you that a lot has gone on just over the last 3 weeks. And believe it or not, there was actually something good that did come out of the legislative session. It was kind of a scary moment, but on July 10th, Senate Bill 2 was filed during the second special session, and that included the increase in the homestead exemption from $40,000 to $100,000. And initially, the language stated that only bond issuances that took place prior to September 1 of 2022 were going to be held harmless. So there was kind of a scary few days there where it was, oh no, not only because of Kennedale having passed your bond election in May, but other districts that passed their May elections, other districts that issued bonds over the last year weren't going to be held harmless, even though a lot of value was going to be wiped away from their tax rolls as a result of the homestead exemption increase. On that Thursday, the Senate, and actually it was Senator Betancourt, put an amendment that not only stated it would cover, hold harmless would cover bond issuances prior to September 1 of 2023. They went so far as to say they would cover all authorizations, meaning past elections, that were passed prior to September 1 of 2023, and that was a huge sigh of relief because that means not only this issuance, $50 million, but also the remaining authorization will be covered by a hold harmless payment from the state. So long story short, we're very happy that we passed the election in May of 23, because had you done the exact same thing in November of 23, you would not receive that hold harmless. So that was one of the few pieces of good news, if you will. Ultimately, what's going to happen is your taxpayers are going to benefit from the increase in the homestead exemption. However, you're going to get the difference made up by the state to where you're still going to be, in essence, paying based upon the $40,000 homestead exemption. So it's a win-win for taxpayers. It's a win-win for the districts as well. So this morning, we priced the $50 million from this authorization. It goes pretty quickly. You know, they sell it in a couple of hours. And just to give you, I go to a lot of school board meetings. I know interest rates have been a hot topic. You know, interest rates are up. You see what the Fed is doing or has done over the last year. Remember, when the Fed raises rates, that's the overnight rate. So while short-term rates have gone up over 500 basis points or 5% on the Treasury, that hadn't happened on the long end of the yield curve, meaning long-term rates aren't up that far. Now, they are up, but they're not up to those levels. So kind of to give you an idea of the overall tax-exempt market, this is what's called the bond buyer index, this graph here. And in the white background there, it goes all the way back to 1981, when, believe it or not, tax-exempt rates were over 13%. And you can see that's trended down for quite some time, and you can see where we are on the far right. And I went ahead and put the 15-year average, the 10-year average, and the 5-year average of this index. It comes out every Thursday. This last Thursday, it was at 3.6. So you can see we're kind of between that 15-year average and that 10-year average. But the one thing I'll point out is I kind of call them the COVID rates. You can see the very bottom of where interest rates were, and that coincided with the pandemic. I don't think we're going to get to those interest rate levels again unless something terrible happens, like a world war or another pandemic or something along those lines. So long story short, even though rates are up, they're still, from a historical perspective, relatively low. So 360 is where this index was. The next, just to kind of show you this $50 million issuance, Over in columns 2 and 3, we got a 4.036% rate on a 25-year issuance. And what the graph shows, the black line was your existing bonds, and we've been paying off different maturities over the last several years, saving taxpayers some money by doing that. But the black was your tax rate for existing bonds. The blue is your tax rate after this $50 million issuance, and then the green will be the tax rate, projected tax rate after the issuance of all of the authorization. Again, we're at the 38-cent level, which was communicated to the voters. And you can see we're probably going to see a pretty good drop-off here in 3 or 4 years, and you'll be able at that time to decide, do we have other needs that we want to go and look at and maybe do another election, hopefully be able to keep the rate the same or minimal impact? Do we want to lower the tax rate? So you'll have some options of what you do there. Now, I will tell you that the reason why this green line looks better, quite honestly, than what we had looked at whenever we were planning for this, even with the $100,000 homestead exemption, the $60,000 increase in the homestead exemption, your tax base went up 9%. That's not something that I would have projected. You know, with interest rates being up, the thought was the economy would slow somewhat. However, you know, in the state of Texas, the economy is still booming, and districts across the state have seen significant increases in their tax base. And so you were up over 9% even with the homestead exemption going up $60,000 per home. This page, I know it's probably difficult to read, but over on the left, I've got the tax base. You were up, if I can see that right, 9.82% is what you're up even with the homestead exemption. I'm being extremely conservative in those years after. If we continue to grow at these levels, you'll either be able to pay off bonds earlier or you'll be able to lower the tax rate. That's a decision that you can make during the budgeting process. Column 3 is that existing debt service. I still have that last redemption that we did in column 5 where we paid off some bonds early. Your existing Asahi funding, I've just said it's going to go away in 25 just to be conservative. I'm hopeful that they'll continue to pay that. It's a smaller amount than the Asahi that you're going to be receiving as a result of the $60,000 increase. Column 7 is the tax rate on the existing bonds. And then there in the middle in columns 8, 9, and 10 is this issuance here. So a 25-year issue, you can see how that's structured. I've assumed we would issue the remainder next summer. We could always break that up into 2, but I've just assumed at this point we would issue the remainder next summer. And then column 14, that's the importance of having the election in May of 23 versus November of 23. If you look at that bottom line figure, it's estimated that you'll receive hold harmless payments in the amount of $14.1 million as a result of the state making that change and holding districts harmless for bond authorizations prior to September 1 of 2030. So it's one of those, timing is everything, and sometimes my dad used to tell me it's better to be lucky than good, and we were fortunate that the legislature actually did make a good decision on that. And then ultimately in column 17, that's that green line that you saw on the prior page, which is the tax rate projections going forward. And again, you can see a pretty good drop-off happening after 2027 and continue to go down a little bit each year. So with that, if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them, but overall, very, very happy with the result. I will say, between the new legislation, all the districts getting their certified values on July 25th, and $22 billion in Texas ISD bond elections passing in May, it's a busy calendar. A lot of school district bond issuances out there. So I was pleased that there's a lot of supply. I was pleased with the 4.03% level.
A lot of numbers.
Yes, sir.
Basically, we're in very good shape.
Yes, sir. Better than what we had projected. Again, we try to be conservative, and when Mr. Adams sent me the certified values, I had to kind of look at them a couple of times to go, wait a second. We just did up the homestead exemption $60,000 per home, and you still went up almost 10%. So that's significant.
Awesome. Any questions? All right. Awesome. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Detailed explanation of where we are and how good of a job you've been doing. Yes, sir. I'm sorry, you did. All right. Okay, that being the case, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the issuance and sale of Kennedale Independent School District Unlimited Tax School Building Bonds, Series 2023, including the adoption of an order authorizing the issuance of such bonds.
There's a Motion by Ms. Villagomez.
Second.
And second by Ms. Douglas. All in favor, let it be known by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? And that motion passes unanimously. Okay, so discussion, 7F, we'll move to discuss and consider approval of policy update 121.
So, you had your first reading at the last board meeting, this is the second reading, we usually adopt it after this. The thing is we pretty much go with the TASB recommendation to keep us out of legal issues. There are several of these policies that don't really affect us, like we don't have our own police force, so you kind of reduce those things that don't really apply. But just adopting what TASB has, would be my recommendation.
Any questions from anyone? Okay, then I will entertain a motion.
I move that the board make revisions to the local policies affected by update 121 as recommended by TASB Policy Service and District Administration.
Second.
Okay, so that motion was made by Mr. Glover and seconded by Ms. Douglas. All in favor, let it be known by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay? And that motion passed unanimously as well. Next, we'll go to section 8, and that's superintendent's report.
All right, so, like always, the big priority is Arthur gonna open up time? Yes. Is it gonna be tight? Yes, it will be tight, but we every time we speak with them, we're on track. If you noticed, they have done quite a bit of the painting on the exterior. If you've been by there, starting to looking like it was intended to look. They still got a ways to go with the painting, but they assure us that it will get done. They've moved crews from the inside painting that has been finished to the outside, to the exterior. The priority is getting the interior finished first. Well, that's moving forward. We had the tree trimmers out there today cleaning up the property, moving, trees, getting within code compliance. We've got our temporary certificate of occupancy, and we're moving towards certificate of occupancy. There's a few things we have to finalize with that. We get that fixed, and then we will be able to start moving in the administrative staff at that point in time. So tomorrow, yeah. So we're looking to getting them in. Teachers are back tomorrow, and they will meet in actually our paras are back tomorrow. Our teachers are back the day after. We're looking at having them meet at Delaney for the first day, and then if we do get the certificate of occupancy the way we expect to, then they will be able to start going over, and if it's to part in construction to where we can start organizing and moving stuff in, then we will start with that. So, where we're at there. Any questions on Arthur?
I just want to comment, I think be remiss in commenting at what a stunning job you guys have all done. Many of us, I think, toured with you, so I appreciate your time in doing that and your explanation as we go through. I mean, everything from colors to materials to themes, to what corresponds with the teaks. I mean, there was just so much time, attention, detail put into it by so many staff. It was just stellar, A+ by everybody. It is just such a phenomenal addition to our district to be proud of. And I just thank you to everybody that has put in such, tireless hours to do that. It's amazing.
Dr. Boo and I,
Thank you.
How are you?
It's
Dr.
really
Boo and I are
brought by it.
going to be working with the Service Center with a grant, which is on the leadership grant that's sponsored through TEA. And so the person who will be working with us during that training came by my office the other day after I'd taken you and Mr. Glover around, and so I was like talking about all the initiatives and things that we've put in place in our district, and and I pulled out the map. It was a big map that was in my office. I started showing him, telling him about the themes and all this stuff, and he's like, "Well, that is really wild." I said, "You want to go see it?" And he's like, "Do you mind?" I was like, "Let's go." So we went over there, and he was just like, "Wow." And he's like, "This will be a focal point for a lot of districts to come look at what you're doing here." So something for all of our staff and our community to be proud of.
The tree's amazing.
I'm excited.
Yes.
Even when we went on the tour,
Yeah.
a different, three of us,
The fire department was there, you know, checking everything for a code. They come in, I think, once a week or so. And even some of the firefighters were like, this is awesome.
Yeah, the tree, how did you
Yeah.
figure that
Yeah,
out?
they're like, how
And-
did you, this is really cool.
They were wishing they were
Back.
6 years old again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think everyone that goes into that room is like, I wish I could have done this.
Yeah, I drive by it every day and I smile every time I drive by, so.
It's come together nicely. It will be tight. I'm not gonna, tell you that it will be tight.
It'll be working.
Our guys have been moving stuff, and I think we're moving more stuff into Arthur's gym, but we move stuff out, we move stuff in, move stuff out, move stuff in.
Speaking of moving stuff out, the portables are gone.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was a happy dance.
That was kind of a hearing moment, It was like, well, do we keep them?
There's
Do we
no
let them
turning
go?
back
Do we
now.
let them go? And I'm like, no, send them,
Yeah.
here we go.
We're confident.
Figure it out.
We can do it.
Figure it out.
Yeah,
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, because, my concern has always been, my fingers are crossed, but I'm like, okay, is this gonna happen? It seemed like it was just so much work to be done. But when I took the tour, it was like, oh, it's been done.
Yeah, it looks amazing.
It's been done, so yeah, I appreciate that.
it's not the same building. It's the same building, but it's not the same building.
No, it's literally, when you walk in, it even smells like a new building. I mean, all of it is
Got the
like,
new campus
it's
smell.
not even the same place.
All right, so thank y'all for that vote of confidence for our staff, appreciate that. And then moving on to open enrollment, we have opened, y'all gave me authority, but opened enrollment from first grade to 12th grade. We are only still getting high school applicants, so we're gonna have to find a way. We've been checking Jordan, by the way, this is Jordan Dunlap, our new marketing and communications coordinator. Ms. Duamo, who's back with us, she's replacing Laura Wells in her role, so she's back with us from Burleson. Never should have left in the first place. All right. So anyway, glad to have her back and glad to welcome Jordan. But as I was saying, we're trying to find a way to blast it out on Facebook, and for some reason with the transition, there's been it's locking us out of being able to blast it out. But she's working with Facebook to get that sorted out so we can blast it out to our, I think it's about a 20 square mile radius that goes out through that. So we're working on getting it blasted out to open up, and we're not going to open up for everybody. There's going to be certain numbers by where our cohorts are at each campus, and looking at how that would roll into the junior high school and affect the junior high school. So we're keeping all those numbers in check. We set a number, and so the principals all know what that is. So, okay. All right. And C, back to school update. So,
It's around the corner.
we talked about Arthur, but how are we at all of our other campuses? We're in great shape. We just went through today at our directors meeting. I'm happy to announce that Brian and his team have, our network is completely rolled over and completely new. So all of the cabling, all of the switches, all the servers, all the Wi-Fi, all of that throughout the district has been finalized. That's been 5 years in the making, so we're done with that. And moving on to now we got to get Arthur. So now the priority is getting Arthur up and hooked up with all the stuff.
Arthur's good. It's admin.
Yeah.
That's you.
Well, not with the network. I'm just talking about getting all the,
Sorry.
just making sure everything's up and running for the first time.
Arthur's done.
But, admin is the only building that really still has the networking stuff that we need to work on. So, but anyway, as far as moving stuff, I just said, we've been moving stuff out of Patterson and Delaney. We still have a few things in Delaney to move to Arthur. Still sorting through what needs to be there and what doesn't. There's some stuff that's kind of intermingled curriculum things that we're going to have to sort through. But for the most part, our guys got all the other campuses. The floors are all waxed. Paint, what could be painted was painted before we started having to do all the other. And I feel like we're ready to roll. So we had a great first week of training with our new staff. Right, we didn't have any of the technology issues that we had last year because Because everything's ready, yeah, so, we only had it tonight at the board meeting, but that's okay, you know, so, but, yeah. There's gotta be something, right? You know, but, like I said, we're ready to roll. And then, the last one is ELAR curriculum update. You had asked about, I had a request to talk about changes. The first document that you have, that's basically our TEACS certification with our content areas, our core areas, what we're utilizing in each grade level, our certification to the state of how we're doing it with the TEACS, and then, of course, who's responsible for making that happen. And then, can't toggle back to that. And then the second document is basically going through our, sorry, I can't see. Our different curriculums for the different things, so like SEL, what we use for SEL, our reading language arts, our math, social studies, independent reading, science, kind of goes through that. Our interventions, which are our web time and our accelerated instruction. That breaks down everything. I'm not going to read it to you verbatim, but you can read for yourself. And then, of course, our camp, which is our computer, art, music, and PE. And then the additional information at the bottom of it. Each grade level, K through, I'm going to put my glasses on a second, sorry. K through 5 will have a district pacing calendar for all 4 content areas, which will be linked in curriculum toolkit and the teacher resource hub. So everything we do is in line with the standards that the state of Texas sets with the TEACS. It's when we certify that we're following the TEACS, we're following the TEACS. The last document, get back to this instructional materials. This is a very intricate plan, and Dr. Boo put this together, gave it to me, all of this today, but the idea is that it goes through our planning, it goes through everything that we look at with our teacher resource system, the Texas guides, what lead forward, which is the training that you see on the wall over there, so moving into our instructional practices. Then we have the assessment, which we brought in WE and MAP, and we utilize DMAC. DMAC is also where we have our T-test and T-PES observations and our evaluations for our staff. That's where that goes into place for our principals and for our teachers. So that's where we utilize DMAC, and DMAC, as I said, is part of that Region 11 contract. Then we have our core resources with ELAR. We're utilizing Amplify K through 5. Fountas and Canal, which is the guided reading which we have purchased in our district previously. We spent quite a bit of money updating our guided reading libraries for our elementaries and our junior high. And the Scholastic Storyworks and Scope K-6, empowering writers. As you know, writing across the state, across the nation, across the state is struggling right now, and so finding things to start helping our writers at the early grade levels. We have empowering writers, empowered power. And then we have Springboard, which is 7th through 8th grade, Study Sync, 9th through 12th grade. Our math, we brought in STEM Scopes math. Was it 2 years ago, or was it last year? STEM Scopes math, where it's been integrated, I think, over the last 2 years. Yeah, last 3 years, sorry, last 3 years. I mean, it's been a while. We've been training our teachers and bringing in that curriculum in elementary math. And then we brought in this year, Carnegie Learning, 6th through 8th grade math. Then we have Big Ideas math, 9th through 12th grade. Science, we once again utilize STEM Scopes, science K through 8. Sapling, 9th through 12, and our social studies is Discovery Education for K through 12. McGraw Hill Connected, 7th through 8, 9th through 12. And then we have our Advanced Academic College Prep. So much there, I'm not going to read through all of that. But and then we have our on-ramps, which is our dual on-ramps dual enrollment, which is through the University of Texas, where our students can enroll in our teachers get trained by faculty from UT and TA. And then we got Tarrant County dual credit, which we utilize. We may be expanding our dual credit to some other possible avenues potentially, especially after the email I read today. So we may have to look at some other options to get our dual credits students their work. Supplemental resources, as you see, lots of Google, Jamboard, Gmail, student email, and Clever pre-K through second, which is a single sign-on that allows our students, instead of having to remember passwords, they have a simple way to get into the programs that they need to utilize. Brian and his staff, once again, pretty much a part of Clever. Dr. Beer heard that. Trying to get our students access to what they need relatively quickly. Sorry. Computer suddenly stopped functioning with me.
Imagine that.
And we have Text Quest K through 12, Rewrite Pre-K, Cami, and Magic Map Pre-K through 8. Extension, we have Texas Performance Standards, Get to the Talented, and special programs. We have Scottish Write, Take Flight, Dyslexia, Dysgraphia, SIPs for the older grades, dyslexia. And then we have Amplio and ETA, once again, for dyslexia. And then we have Unique Learning Systems, Special Education, Essential Academics for our essential academic students. And we have Ready Rosie for ESL and EL. And we have Gold Book for special education. And that pretty much is the curriculums that we utilize. So pretty extensively and planning that goes into it. So I hope that answers the question. If not, two questions. Okay, all right.
The first one is for Amplify for, on the page with the blue borders. So tier 1 is Amplify, and if there needs small group, it's gonna be Fountas and Pinnell. Pullouts,
We're gonna follow the Amplify
so
scope.
just the
It's
Amplify
very
scope and
scripted.
sequence.
But the
Okay.
literacy blocks are longer than is required for Amplify, and then also in win time, so they'll be able to pull guided reading groups or small groups. It just depends on what's happening in that class, but the goal is to be responsive to the student needs.
And then for Lead Forward, is this the free version, or are we paying for the other version?
We use the instructional strategies playlist.
Okay.
And we also use they're essentially TEAS clarification documents where it goes by subject and it breaks down each standard with assessment items for the teachers. We do pay for that, and it's linked to our curriculum toolkit.
Okay. So we have a combination of both. Everybody can get the free, and then some we have access to the other.
Yes.
Very good. Okay, thank you.
Anybody else?
Okay, so I do have one question.
Okay.
I understand, reading is an emphasis for us, and I see the curriculum that we're using for, I guess, 1st through 5th grade. So writing, when it comes to 6th grade, the patterns of power says 1st through 5th. I know some teachers actually took a course this summer for 6th through 8th. So are we not going to have that available for them this year?
So patterns of power.
Patterns of Power was something that was purchased before I came to Kennedale, and so we have those books. There is grammar instruction embedded in our core resource for 6th through 8. If we had teachers in 6th through 8 go to that training, it wasn't something that the district sponsored, but it's absolutely something that we can talk about. Jeff Anderson is great, and whenever he published this book, he went around all over Texas and did all kinds of trainings. I went to a couple of them. He hasn't been back as often now that his book is published, and so it's not something that we've spent a lot of time talking about or thinking about because we've been moving forward with other items.
Well, I guess I have to be personal for this year, because I had to buy that book for somebody.
I was not aware of that. That it's absolutely something we could talk about. We've been focusing on our core resources, but but it's great stuff for the supplementary pieces. I'd like to know more about the training that they attended. We can discuss it.
So, but we're covering that obviously with our curriculum. We
It's
already have
included
that
in our
for-
core curriculum, yes. The Patterns of Power, it's a different approach to language, you know, using mentor sentences to learn about grammar and author's craft. That's something that can be done as a supplement to the core instruction, but it's not something that we have included in our core resource list.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? So that's, the end of all of our questions, or we have some others that we'd like to get clarified for the term, Mr. Chief Police. All right, okay, so that takes care of section number 8. And we now go to section on board discussion, upcoming meeting dates and times.
All right, so our next regular board meeting should be, or has been scheduled, I think, was it the 17th, Thursday, the third Thursday?
Yes.
Okay.
Budget workshop.
But we're looking at moving that to the last week of August because of budget, adoption of the budget, and the tax rate that we have to do. But we do have to have a public hearing for that meeting, a public hearing, and then roll right into the other meeting. And then the other aspect is we have to basically kind of come together at some point and discuss the tax rate. We've already kind of touched on the INS rate tonight, our compression rate, but we were being compressed again to the tune of, like, we're going from 94 cents down to about 69 cents. So it's a 19-cent drop in our M&O tax rate compression because of our values. And so our INS rate would be the 38 cents that was approved by the boarders and what we saw on the screen a while ago. So our INS would be set at 38 cents and our compressed rate, I know it's 19 cents below what we are now, so that's 75 cents, but they could compress us even more down to 69, but it's a scary proposition with what they've done at the legislature, but our tax rate, overall tax rate would be basically $1.35, sorry, $1.13, $1.13.25.
So we need to have a special meeting
To sit there and we get more finalized numbers, make sure that we're good with that going forward with the budget. And at that time, we'll have more budget numbers and everything at that time. Right now,
Special meetings, special meetings for the hearing.
special
Right.
meeting, yeah, would be before that. So Tracy, help me out here. I'm not seeing the dates.
The budget workshop was Thursday, August 17th, and then the hearing and regular meeting is August 31st.
Yeah, that's what we're proposing, so it's in there. It's just not pulling up on my computer for some reason. I don't know why I'm not seeing it.
I know we discussed last time about doing the hearing as a separate meeting, or doing it in the first meeting, so that there is time, people to hear it, process it, whatever, make their public comments. That was a discussion we had in the last regular meeting, I think.
Correct.
Yeah.
Or was it last
I have
special
The
it.
last special meeting.
Okay, I think we were not going to do all that on at this meeting on the 17th?
Well, the desire was it for
I
it to
think
be
we're gonna discuss the
separate.
tax rate, and y'all will basically vote, or not vote, but you'll tell us the direction of where we need to go with setting the tax rate. But we have to put it out in the newspaper, and we have to broadcast it at least 10 days before the public hearing, and we have to publish the public hearing. That's why we're putting it into the special meeting before the regular
Yeah,
meeting.
I
Having
remember
that
that.
before so that people can come and talk about it, but
Not stay
we're
for
proposing
them.
to have the public hearing 2 weeks before.
Was it a public hearing that we wanted to do before? I just want to make
I
sure.
think we wanted
Yes,
more
I think
time to
that's- I think you
discuss, and it
mentioned
was
that.
separate.
Yes, we needed
Because
more
the
time.
spirit of it really
The
is to do
spirit
like
of it
you
is
said.
really- Yeah.
Have public comment.
have them be able to come, listen, if they can't attend that time, be able to review it, process it, digest it, and then we come back for a separate meeting. So I remember you specifically mentioning that, Sean, I think a lot of us were in agreement with that.
We were.
Okay, let's back up here. What are we, the 17th we just mentioned as
Special meeting.
a special meeting.
As a budget workshop to go over all of it.
Tax rate.
So we need to have, the hearing 10 days before that? Or is it
No, he
required
said
Monday?
The required posting for it.
Yeah,
It's
required
10 days.
posting.
I think the proposal of what we have is fine. I think it's in line with
So
what.
we're gonna put on the 17th, and the required posting would have to be at least 10 days before that.
That's not a problem.
Right.
Mm-mm.
It would be a week from
So
today.
this is fine.
Well, this one's not like that, because both of these are on the 31st. The public hearing for it is on the 31st, and then our meeting is 15 minutes later. So I think Sean is suggesting that we do the public hearing like on the 17th during that meeting, correct?
That's, yeah.
And then we come back on the 31st.
In the spirit of what that's supposed to be, have people come in, hear it, whatever.
Oh, gotcha.
make their comments. It should be a separate meeting, it should be the meeting before.
Yeah. So we should have our workshop and followed that by the public hearing.
Correct. And then come back on the 31st and act on the information from those two meetings.
Yeah.
I also remember the discussion being, we needed to get it out of the regular, so I guess it's fine to just move the hearing as long
Yeah.
as there's enough time to post it.
Yeah, and we've got,
Makes
I think that
sense.
works.
Yeah.
So we'll be having, if that's in agreement with everybody, 17th for a special meeting, which will have the public hearing before, and after the public hearing, then we'll do our workshop. And then we'll come on the 31st, we'll have our.
I would think it would need to be reversed.
Workshops.
Yeah, the workshop first.
Then the public hearing.
Okay.
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 But still taking place on the 17th.
Yes.
Okay.
At 6
Public
o'clock.
hearing.
Yeah.
So the workshop will be from 6 until, and then the public hearing will be,
I guess.
I don't foresee that the workshop would last extremely long. I mean, the numbers are the numbers. We give them basically from the state, as I said, because they can press us down. We only have so much room, to work within. So I don't really think the workshop will actually take that long. It's just having better numbers at that point in time.
and the workshop is when Mr. Adams goes through all of the budgets,
The three
General
that
fund.
you approved, yeah.
everything.
And then, you have the workshop, then we have the public hearing, and then on the 31st will be the adoption, because it goes into effect on the first, so approve it on the 30th. Once we approve it on the 31st, then we're into the.
My only question on this is there enough time for you to have the numbers? I know sometimes we've pushed it into that. Okay.
He said
We
yes.
finally got values, which was, showed with the thing, we got the values to go from there. We also had to just turn in our survey to the state, where local, property value survey that we have to send in. And we're waiting for them to send it back to us. We've got their acceptance, they approved it, they accepted it or whatever. Now, we're waiting for the number to come back from them saying, this is what your tax rate needs to be at. But we pretty much calculated the compression down to 75 cents, is that right? 75. So that's 19 cents below where we're at right now.
That make a difference.
Yeah.
Okay, so everybody good with that? So two meeting dates, 17th, August 17th, and August 31st.
Yep.
6 p.m.
Both 6 p.m. both, beginning at 6 p.m.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, awesome. Back again.
9B. So
9B.
9B is a convocation, which is scheduled for Friday, August 11th. We will start serving breakfast at 7:30 in the morning. Breakfast will go from 7:30 to about 8, I'd say 8:50, somewhere in there. We'll have our drawings from the vendors and everyone. And then we move into the gym, and we'll have our convocation ceremony. It's probably not gonna last very long this year. We're gonna kind of upbeat it a little bit, have some fun, and that's pretty much gonna be, hey, welcome back, and let's go from there. So our theme this year is We Are Family, so you can imagine what songs we'll be playing.
I wonder.
associated with that, so.
Okay.
I'm sorry, what time did we say that was starting?
Starts at 7:30, so
Breakfast.
plan on being in attendance, would be great.
Okay. All right. All right, and maybe now we just have 9C.
Okay, so at the last regular board meeting, we talked about renaming of the PAC facility. Had some discussion. Tracy's done, contacted some other districts, contacted KISD. We have some sample policies. We feel like in order to do that, it would be a good procedure to create a policy and let y'all kind of look through these, come back at the next, at the special meeting on the 17th, possibly give us some, guidance on where you think you want to go with it. It could be part of the regular meeting in August to take a vote on, and then proceed from there.
Okay. Anybody?
Well, we'd have to get the policy back from KISD. If it's ready, then we potentially vote on it. Actually, you need to send your feedback in ahead of time, what you think needs to be included in the thing, and then send it to Mr. Owen, and get it to me.
So you're asking us to read this different samples, select one of those samples to give you.
Not necessarily one, but just ideas.
Okay, you can come back.
Okay, so you don't need those now, but, okay.
As long as we have it in for the
Those are ideas
17th,
to
we're
Mr.
good.
Owen ahead of time,
Awesome.
before the special meeting. Give us some time to compile something, get guidance at that meeting. If that's the direction you want to go with it, everybody's good with it, and then we'll send it to KISD and we can vote on it at the August regular meeting.
Okay, and if there's gonna be any consideration about renaming anything anytime soon, we'll be using that policy. Follow that policy, to do that. All right, great. And we will then move to section 10, personnel.
I said, I'm not gonna read through, lots of hot new hires, lots of people coming in. We had a few late, you have the 45-day rule, and so we had a few late resignations, but we are talking about, going back to my report on staffing, we have 3 teaching vacancies right now. So that's all. And I think we have 4 or 5 para positions, but our principal is going to focus on the teaching positions. So we expect the pairs to get filled in the next week. But right now, we're in fairly good shape, so.
Remember where those teaching vacancies were?
The one is the CNA, which that's concerning, so we're working. I thought we had one, but she turned us down, so that was not good.
CTE.
CNA is one, but we have a bilingual first grade position, but we think we have a plan to accommodate for that. Tracy, what was the other?
CTE, computer science.
The open positions are the bilingual teacher,
First grade at Delaney.
the CTE health science position,
Real science.
and a sped teacher position.
Yeah, so, essential academics, I believe, at Patterson, so that's what it was.
I don't suppose you know off the top of your head what the apparel, the open apparel positions, where they are?
Oh, most of them are at the high school, so they have the most fair, so I think 3 of them are at the high school, and the others are kind of sort of put out.
So there are 3 positions. Okay.
So, where we are with personnel, and that's pretty much it.
All right.
It looks daunting, but I would just like to point out that we're 2 to 1 for new hires over resignations. So,
And that
You
means-
had to do
it's
the
just, yeah, it's just 15 to 30. 30 to,
Not bad.
yeah. We've got twice as many new hires as we do.
I think the point that I like to bring out is that people want to come here.
Yeah,
Okay, they've identified what's here and they'd like to be here.
And they come back.
yeah. And one of our new hires went to high school with me.
We have a good team, and I'm sure that great things are going to happen in 23, 24.
Yep.
All right, okay.
Now we're in section 11.
All right, so we're now into section 11, and the board's going to adjourn into closed session pursuant to Texas Government Code, section 551.074, personal matters, and 551.076, deliberation regarding safety and security. Okay. So the time now is 7:46, and we will pause for recess and we'll go into executive session.
Can we go for a 5-minute break?
Five-minute break, so let's return if we can.
15.
We will resume at 7:55. How about that?
10, all right.
Okay? All right, everybody make sure their things are on.
Microphones.
Okay, gaveling back in to.
Rolling?
Ooh.
Is that Mike?
Phew. Hot mic.
It's gonna happen again.
Turn it off. Oh, your
Still
phone
happening.
mic is still on.
Shoo-wee. Oh my gosh, that hurts. OMG.
I don't know why it's doing that.
Whew.
Because it can.
All right. Okay, hold
Here
on.
it comes again. Hold on, train's coming.
Oh, my goodness.
All right.
All right.
Good? Okay, we're good.
Gaveling back in at 9:18. Okay, and we will now address the superintendent's evaluation and extension or modification of the superintendent's contract. Board will have a motion and second, but the board has agreed to provide the foregoed, the amount of your increase, the 3% that you foregoed on the last pay cycle, last pay treatment, excuse me, which equated to $5,411, plus an additional $10,000 for the job, which would bring you to a total of $195,764 for your salary. All additional pay increases at this time, however, will be coming from the board itself. Okay? And I think we have a motion on that.
Yes, Mr. President, I make a motion to increase the superintendent's salary by $10,000 in addition to the administrative raise increase that he chose to forego for the 22-23 school year. The new salary will be $195,764 effective September 1st. Furthermore, I make a motion to remove the verbiage regarding the automatic raise based on the administrative raises.
And is there a second?
Second.
Okay, that is motion made by,
I think our pay cycle starts on July, so it goes from July to you said September 1st.
Yes, so
You like-
July,
would you like to amend
so I
that?
need to amend that.
We had a question about
So I have
that.
to read it all over.
Yeah.
July 1st? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, I make a motion to increase the superintendent's salary by $10,000 in addition to the administrative raise increase that he chose to forego for the 22-23 school year. The new salary will be $195,764 effective July 1st, 2023. Furthermore, removing the verbiage regarding the automatic raises based on administrative raises.
Motion made by Ms. Moody,
Second.
second made by Ms. Villagomez. All in favor, let it be known by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that motion carries unanimously. We'll have a second motion regarding the superintendent's contract.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to extend our superintendent's contract for one additional year, taking him through to the year of 2026.
June of 2026?
June 2026.
Okay, motion made by Ms. Cruz Perez,
Second.
second made by Ms. Villagomez. All in favor of the motion, let it be known by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that motion goes 6, that is 4, 1 against, And let's make sure that we have that correctly noted, that Ms. Moody voted against the extension. Okay. We now have another motion that's going to be made.
I do have one clarifying question if I can.
Yes.
I think I'm wanting you to authorize you to negotiate and execute, whether it is with the city or other options.
There's two.
So this basically this repeats the
I think it's both, so.
There's two.
Okay.
With the city
There's two
and
more.
with, for school resources with the city, and I think there's another.
There's
one
two different ones.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So it's like one motion and then the other.
Oh, that's, okay.
Second.
All right, then I make a motion to authorize the superintendent to negotiate and execute and have deemed appropriate the interlocal agreement for school resource officers with the city of Kennedale.
motion by Ms. Douglas,
Second.
second by Ms. Villagomez. All in favor, let it be known by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that motion carries unanimously. And there's one more motion to be made.
Mr. President, I have a question.
Yeah.
So we said July 1st, 2023, so that we're going back 1 month, or are we gonna wait till 2024?
We're gonna
Go
go
back.
back. Okay, it'll be effective
Then-
on 2023.
Thank you. Just double checking.
Okay.
Okay, so, it's not. Make a motion to approve the superintendent to negotiate and execute potential contract services with security companies for armed security personnel.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Mr. Glovier, second by Ms. Maria Douglas. All in favor of the motion, let it be known by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that motion passes unanimously as well. Okay. and that
Mr.
will take us
President.
through. And, yes, Mr. Glovier?
I motion that we adjourn this meeting and get up out of here.
Yes,
Motion.
please. Approved.
Done.